Hi everyone, I thought I'd film a tutorial today on making your own sculpting tools. I needed to make a few for a project that I have coming up. So I thought that I'd take you all through the process of how I do that and how you could possibly do it for yourself as well. It's very easy, so let's go. So here are the tools that I'm going to be demonstrating making today. These are probably my most used tools out of everything that I have. I'm not sure why, they're just the right size, and I haven't been able to find tools that sort of replicate these very well, and I like to make my own handles as well. You may have this stuff already lying around your house. I'm a big fan of making my own tools, and there's definitely some other ones I'm going to try soon. So I'll film those when I do them. Let's get started. We'll have a look at what we need and go from there. So the idea for these tools came from this book of mine that I've had for a while, Creating Lifelike Figures in Polymer Clay, and it's written by Catherine Dewey. It's such an amazing book. I do highly recommend buying this book. It did cost around $70, but it's well worth it. It actually goes through lots of sculpting stuff, not just figurines, but proportions and sort of techniques that just because it's a clay book doesn't mean it can't be applied to fondant as well. So I do highly recommend this book, and this making of the tools has come from this book, so I'm going to just put this in a video for you. So the first thing we need are tubular aluminium knitting needles. So when you go to find these, normally over a size 10 means that they're hollow. So you need the hollow tubes. I couldn't actually find them. So mine are a 7.5 millimeter, but they are a tube. So I sort of have to work around that. I couldn't find over 10s, but you may have them lying around. They have to be aluminium. These will be going in the oven. So for obvious reasons, plastic won't work. The next thing we will be needing, tapestry needles. Now I've just picked these ones because I'm in need of tools that have ends this size. So you can go and pick any sort of size needle you like, or whatever you have hanging around your house. I like the tapestry needles because they have the blunt end, and they're really good for sculpting skin textures. These bigger ones here are quite good for sculpting hair. In terms of the ends of the tools, I've gone ahead and bought some of these. They're aluminium 4mm needles, and they'll be used to make one of these tools, which is really good for hair too, really good for eyes, eyelids. You'll need a tube cutter for cutting your aluminium knitting needles. You'll need thread. You'll see why we need that later. That's to pop the tapestry needle into the hollow knitting needle. You'll need super tack glue, is the one I'm going to use, some pliers, and you'll need some polymer clay. I'll be using this one here today, but there's so many different clays available to buy. I do recommend buying a harder brand, more durable brand, such as Primo. These ones of mine are all dried out, so I won't be using any of those, but it gives you a lot of freedom to make tools in your company colours or whatever you like with that. So here I'll be using the tube cutter to cut my knitting needle. So I'm just going to cut to here. I'm going to leave this end part for a tool. So it goes in there. If you haven't used a tube cutter before, sort of just spin it, and there'll be a little blade that comes onto the needle. So I normally do a couple in, rotate it a bit. It just reduces squashing of the tube. Okay, so I've got 2 tubes, 1 point. Just a word of advice, I had a fight with this tube cutter. It's actually rusty. I haven't used it for a while. But anyway, moving on. Next, we need our polymer clay. Now the one that I have here is just some scraps that I've pulled out from all different places. So what you need to do with your polymer clay, always make sure you're using a dedicated work surface for polymer clay. Don't use your cake boards and things because it is a chemical. So I have this board here, the granite board here, which is what I use just for polymer clay. So you have to start kneading this one. So the next step with these handles is these handles need to be coated in a glue, just to give them a bit of traction when you put in the clay around them. Okay, so we're just rolling out a piece of clay to wrap around the tool. These little rolling pins are specifically designed for polymer clay. So we'll cut. And start rolling from one end. If you've never worked with polymer clay before, it does take a little bit of getting used to. I've done quite a bit of sculpting with polymer clay. It's how I make all my face molds and things that I sometimes use on cakes or art dolls. I like to sort of explain it as being a push-pull medium rather than carving. It's not really something you carve like your normal clays. So I suppose it sort of behaves a lot like fondant in the way that it's a push-pull medium. Okay, so that's pretty well joined. And it's important to keep these ends clear because we will be inserting the needles in those. So if you go and cover it up, there will be nowhere for them to go. Another little thing you can add to these are handle grips. So you can do them whichever way you like your handle grips. I have quite small hands, so I'm really fussy about tools. That's why I like to make my own. So okay, so we have our 3 handles ready to go. This one I've done the knitting needle point, and I've got 2 spare handles to do different size needles with. So let's go over to the oven and I'll show you how to cook these. So this here is a convection oven. I do recommend buying one of these. Please don't use your food oven because polymer clay gives off toxic fumes when it's heated up. It's not something that you really want around food. So I think this one was $40 to buy, and I use it a lot for all sorts of projects that I do and for the kids, etc. So it really does come in handy, and it's just not worth using your oven for. So this one comes, just take the lid off like this. And inside I've already been doing some dolls and things. So I normally put just a ceramic tile in the bottom, and this stuff here is just polyfill, just the stuff that you fill dolls and teddy bears with. Just gives it a bit of cushion so it doesn't bake flat. And then I'll just sit them in there gently, like that. So on your clay you should have a temperature. I normally bake it, so just leave mine at 125 degrees, and I normally do about 15 minutes. It just depends on the thickness. These aren't very thick, so I'll just do 15 minutes today. We just lock the lid down. Go on 15 minutes, and that's cooking inside there. Okay, so I've taken the handles out of the oven, and I'm just, while I'm waiting for them to cool down, we'll start on the next part. So I've already gone ahead and completed one of these. In order for the needle not to slip out, you need to create sort of a little barrier there. So that's done with just a piece of cotton and some glue. You could possibly do it with clay, but it'd just take longer. So I've gone ahead and just attached cotton to a needle as you would if you were beginning sewing. I've just sort of threaded it through and just tied a knot there. So I'll just start wrapping it around. So you want it in sort of just a little bulge, I suppose. Gives it a bit of traction. And then just to keep it there, I just put one thread through the very end of the needle, and I'll just tie that in a knot. Okay, so the next part of this is to just add some glue to the knot, just to bind it all together. So now we have our 2 needles here, ready to insert into the handles. That's cooled down enough now. We'll use this one to begin with. What we need to do is pack clay into both of these ends, so we have something for the needle to sit in. So we're packing clay in both of these ends. So you just make sort of a tube and just start packing it in. Okay, so this end feels pretty packed in. So I'll go down to this end, and this one's feeling like it's quite packed now as well. So I'm quite happy with both of those. Okay, so now we'll put our needles in. So it's up to you how far you want the needle to protrude out. You might just want a very short sort of tool. I'm quite happy with the way this is now. I tend to hold my tools at a bit of a length. So now you go in, and because the rest of the tool's hard, it's actually quite easy to sculpt on the point now. And that clay, if you've conditioned it well enough with your hands, that clay should blend into the cooked clay with no problems at all. Okay, so that's that end done. You could go and be quite particular up this end, but I like my tools to be organic and a bit rough looking, handmade looking, I suppose. We'll go the other end. So this end we've got a smaller needle, and my hands are shaking because I have been boxing today. So again, we're just making enough for a little point around the handle. Okay, and that's our other end. And there's our tool all ready to go back in the oven. I'll just complete one tool today. That's all, probably, as long as you know the technique. Now it gives you the freedom to put whatever size needles you want. Sometimes I put actual tiny needles in to be doing skin texture with. Or again, and you have your knitting needle. This one is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love this tool. This one, same, I use it for everything. Hair, eyes, everything. So we'll pop this one back in the oven for another 10-15 minutes, and it will be ready to go. Okay, thanks guys for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to check out my other videos, I have lots of cool tips and tricks on my YouTube channel. Coming up, I'm working very hard on getting you guys full tutorials on busts, and also other tutorials on anatomy of the head, face, and expressions. So stay tuned for that, and I'll let everybody know when that's all ready. Have a lovely day. Thanks for watching.